Du Jin stared at his computer screen, blinking several times to make sure he wasn't seeing things. The readings from the Seoul Observatory's main telescope showed not one, but 12 large objects moving toward Earth. They were unlike anything he had ever seen before. "This can't be right," he muttered, adjusting his glasses. He had worked at the observatory for 15 years, but nothing had prepared him for this. The objects were moving in a perfect formation, too perfect to be meteors or space debris. He reached for his phone with shaking hands and dialed the emergency number for the Space Defense Agency. "This is Chief Astronomer Du Jin from Seoul Observatory. We have a situation." Within an hour, the observatory was filled with military personnel and government officials. The objects had grown larger on their screens, and now even amateur astronomers around the world were spotting them with regular telescopes. "They're slowing down," Du Jin announced to the room full of anxious faces. "Whatever these things are, they're not falling toward Earth. They're flying toward it." The military commander in the room, General Park, stepped forward. "How long until they reach our atmosphere?" "At their current speed." Du Jin checked his calculations. "Less than 6 hours." The news spread quickly. Despite government attempts to keep things quiet, social media exploded with photos and videos of the approaching objects. They shone like crystals in the sunlight, their surfaces reflecting rainbow patterns across the sky. By sunset, the first object had entered Earth's atmosphere. Instead of burning up or crashing, it stopped mid-air above Seoul. The other 11 objects spread out across the globe, hovering above major cities. Du Jin stood on the observatory's roof, watching the massive crystalline ship floating above his city. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The ship looked like it was made entirely of transparent crystal, with geometric patterns that seemed to shift and change. The first message came through every electronic device on Earth simultaneously. The aliens called themselves the Galrak. Their words appeared in every language, displayed on every screen. "We are the Galrak. Your planet has resources we require. Your resistance would be pointless. We will begin harvesting operations within one planetary rotation." Du Jin was quickly driven to the emergency command center established beneath Seoul. Scientists from around the city were gathered there, trying to analyze the little data they had about the aliens. "Look at these readings," Du Jin said, pointing to his tablet. "Their ships aren't made of metal. They're made of some kind of living crystal. It's like nothing we've ever seen before." The room fell silent as another message from the Galrak appeared on their screens. This time, it included images of their species. They looked like walking crystals, their bodies composed of geometric shapes that moved and flowed like liquid, but sparkled like diamonds. "Their whole civilization is crystal-based," one of the other scientists whispered in awe. Du Jin noticed something odd in the environmental readings from the alien ships. They're keeping their ships completely dry inside. The humidity levels are 0%. He made a note of this detail, not knowing yet how important it would become. The first day ended with humanity holding its breath. The Galrak ships remained in position, their crystal surfaces glowing softly in the night sky. Military forces around the world were mobilized, but everyone knew their weapons might be useless against these advanced beings. As Du Jin finally left the command center in the early hours of the morning, he looked up at the crystalline ship hovering above Seoul. Its surface rippled with colors in the pre-dawn light. He couldn't help but wonder if these aliens had severely underestimated Earth and its inhabitants. After all, every invasion force in history had made the mistake of underestimating something about their target. Little did the Galrak know, they had just made the biggest mistake of all. They had chosen to invade a planet where the dominant species was made primarily of the one substance that could destroy them completely. The Galrak ships launched their first attack exactly 24 hours after their arrival. Military officer Jae-won stood at the command center in Busan, watching as crystal-like pods rained down from the alien ship above the city. "All units, hold your positions," she ordered through her radio. Her hands were steady, but her heart raced as the pods crashed into the streets. Each one cracked open like an egg, revealing Galrock soldiers. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, their crystal bodies catching the morning sun and throwing rainbow lights across the buildings. The first shots from Earth's military did nothing. Bullets bounced off the crystal aliens like pebbles hitting glass. The Galrock moved forward, their arms transforming into sharp weapons. "Switch to heavy artillery," Jai-1 commanded. The ground shook as tanks fired at the invaders. To everyone's surprise, some of the crystal aliens shattered when hit with enough force. But there were too many of them. "Mom." A young soldier ran up to Jai-1 with a tablet. "Look at these readings. The aliens are avoiding the waterfront. They won't go near the harbor." Jai-1 didn't have time to think about what that meant. The Galrock were pushing toward the command center. She ordered her forces to fall back to higher ground, away from the coast. In the chaos, something strange happened. A fire truck, still full of water from a morning drill, crashed into a group of Galrock soldiers. The aliens screamed, a sound like breaking glass, as the water splashed over them. Their crystal bodies began to fog up, their movements becoming slower. "Did you see that?" Jai-1 grabbed her radio. "All units, report any reactions when the aliens come in contact with water." More reports came in from around the world. In Singapore, a sudden rainstorm had sent the Galrock troops into chaos. In Rio de Janeiro, aliens who had ventured too close to ocean spray were showing signs of weakness. Jai-1 called an emergency meeting with her top officers. "The aliens are acting strange around water," she said, pointing to video footage from different cities. "Look how they avoid puddles and wet areas." As they watched the footage, a Galrock message boomed across the city. "Your primitive defenses are useless. Surrender now." But Jai-1 noticed something in their voice, a slight tremor that hadn't been there before. Were they nervous about something? The day turned into a brutal fight for survival. The Galrock pushed forward with their superior technology, but they moved carefully, too carefully. They avoided water sources and seemed to pause when the humidity rose. Late in the evening, Jai-1 received a call from the science team in Seoul. "Officer Jai-1," Do-jin's voice crackled through the phone. "We've captured some footage you need to see. The aliens aren't just avoiding water. They're afraid of it. Their crystal structure seems to react badly to moisture. That explains their behavior near the harbor," Jai-1 said, thinking quickly. "Do-jin, I need you to send this information to all military commands. We might have found their weakness." As night fell, the Galrock pulled back their forces, but remained in the city. They set up bases using their crystal technology, creating beautiful but terrifying structures that glowed in the darkness. Jai-1 walked through the command center, checking on her troops. The aliens had taken half of Busan, but they hadn't moved as fast as expected. Something was holding them back. "Officer," a scout ran up to her with new footage. "You need to see this. One of our soldiers got into hand-to-hand combat with a Galrock. When he was sweating heavily, the alien backed away quickly. It's like they can't stand being near us when we're sweating." Jai-1 looked at the footage, a plan forming in her mind. If the aliens were weak against water, and humans were full of water. She picked up her secure phone and dialed the science team again. "Do-jin, I need you to analyze something for me. What happens to these crystals when they're exposed to human sweat, tears, or any other bodily fluids?" The answer to that question would change everything about this war. As Jai-1 looked out at the crystal structures glowing in her occupied city, she allowed herself to feel the first spark of hope. Maybe humanity wasn't as defenseless as the Galrock thought. Hae-yun's hands shook with excitement as she looked through her microscope. After 3 days of non-stop work in her underground lab, she had finally captured a piece of Galrock technology. The small crystal shard lay under her lens, still softly glowing. "Everyone, come look at this," she called to her research team. The other scientists gathered around her station. "Watch what happens when I add 1 drop of water." She carefully placed a single drop on the crystal shard. The reaction was immediate. The crystal surface began to dissolve, its perfect structure breaking down. More interesting was how the dissolution created a chain reaction, spreading through the entire piece. "Send this footage to Officer Jai-1 right now," Hei-yun ordered, not taking her eyes off the microscope. "The Galruk aren't just avoiding water. It destroys them at a molecular level." The lab was part of a hidden facility beneath the Seoul Science Institute. Here, Hei-yun and her team worked to understand their enemy while battles raged above ground. The sounds of distant explosions sometimes shook dust from the ceiling. Taiho, the military strategist assigned to their team, watched the crystal dissolve with growing interest. "How fast does this happen with different types of water?" he asked. "Salt water, rainwater. What about the water in the air?" Hei-yun grabbed her tablet and showed him the data. "Any water works, but salt water seems to work faster. That's why they're having more trouble near coastlines. But here's the really interesting part. Even humidity in the air affects them. They have to use special fields around their ships and bases to keep out all moisture." As they talked, a junior scientist burst into the lab. "Dr. Hei-yun, the piece of Galruk armor we captured, it's reacting to something." They rushed to another room where a larger piece of crystal armor was stored in a sealed case. The armor was dissolving at the edges, but nothing had touched it. "Check the humidity monitors," Hei-yun ordered. The readings were normal. "Then what's causing this?" Taiho pointed at the young lab assistant standing near the case. "He just came from running up 10 flights of stairs. He's sweating." Hei-yun's eyes widened. She quickly took samples of the dissolving crystal and rushed back to her microscope. After a few minutes of intense study, she looked up with amazement on her face. "It's not just water," she said. "Human sweat, tears, saliva. Any water-based fluid from our bodies is like acid to them, and it's even more effective than regular water." Taiho was already on his phone, calling military command. "Officer Jai-1, we have confirmation. The human body is a weapon against them." Hei-yun kept working as Taiho shared the news. She tested different samples, measuring reaction times and dissolution rates. Each test confirmed their discovery. The Galruk's crystal structure couldn't handle contact with water in any form. "Look at these numbers," she said, showing her findings to Taiho. "A single drop of human sweat can start a chain reaction that can dissolve a piece of their technology 10 times its size. It's like their whole structure is held together by bonds that water can break." Taiho studied the data with growing excitement. "So you're saying that humans are basically walking water bombs to them? That our bodies are filled with the one thing that can destroy their entire species?" "Exactly," Hei-yun said. "And they don't know it yet. They know water is dangerous, but they don't understand that every human they're fighting is made mostly of water." They spent the rest of the day running more tests and sending their findings to military commands worldwide. Hei-yun couldn't help but smile at the irony. The Galruk had come to conquer Earth, not knowing that its dominant species was made of their greatest weakness. As night fell, Hei-yun looked at her final test results. The numbers were clear. Humans weren't just capable of fighting the Galruk. They were naturally equipped to destroy them. "Send one more message to Jai-1," she told her team. "Tell her to prepare for Operation Rainmaker. It's time to show the Galruk what they're really up against." Above the lab, the crystal ships still floated in the sky, their surfaces shimmering with rainbow colors. But now, for the first time since the invasion began, humanity had hope. Soon, the Galruk would learn that they had made a terrible mistake in choosing Earth as their target. Sun Ho never meant to discover anything important. He was just a young soldier trying to stay alive. During a battle in the streets of Daegu, he found himself cornered by 3 Galruk warriors. Their crystal bodies glowed with an inner light as they moved toward him. The day was hot, and Sun Ho had been running for hours. Sweat poured down his face as he backed against a wall. He had no ammunition left. As one of the Galruk reached for him, a drop of his sweat fell onto its crystal arm. The alien screamed. Where the sweat had touched, its crystal surface began to cloud and crack. The Galrock pulled back, staring at its arm in horror as the damage spread. "They found our weakness," the alien shouted to its companions in their strange, chiming language. "This one is leaking water." Sun-Ho didn't understand their words, but he saw their fear. He wiped his forehead with his hand and flicked the sweat at them. The aliens scrambled backward, tripping over each other to get away. Miles away, in the command center, Hei-Yun was explaining her latest findings to Officer Jai-Won and the other leaders. "Humans are 60% water," she said, pointing to her data. "Our bodies are basically water balloons to the Galrock." "That explains the reports we're getting," Jai-Won said. "Our soldiers say the aliens are starting to avoid close combat. They're keeping their distance." Hei-Yun nodded. "The Galrock are just figuring it out. Even being near humans makes them uncomfortable because of the moisture we give off when we breathe and sweat." Reports were coming in from all over. In Tokyo, a group of runners had sent Galrock soldiers fleeing just by jogging past them, their sweaty bodies acting like mobile water bombs. In Mumbai, the high humidity and sweating people had forced the aliens to retreat to their ships. Back in Daegu, Sun-Ho had shared his discovery with his unit. They stopped using guns and started getting creative. One soldier filled water balloons with his own sweat. Another collected rainwater in his canteen. The Galrock were growing nervous. Their perfect invasion was falling apart because of something they hadn't planned for: the very nature of human bodies. In her lab, Hei-Yun made another breakthrough. "Look at this," she told her team, showing them a video of a Galrock soldier dissolving. "Our sweat doesn't just harm them. The salt and minerals in it make the reaction stronger than pure water." The aliens tried to adapt. They made their armor thicker and added moisture shields, but they couldn't solve their basic problem. Earth was covered in water, and its people were made of it. Sun-Ho's unit became famous for their tactics. They exercised before fights, using their sweat as a weapon. Other units copied them. The Galrock started calling humans water demons in their reports. "Their soldiers are terrified," Jai-Won told Hei-Yun during their daily meeting. "We intercepted their communications. They can't understand how we're beating their advanced technology with just our bodies." Hei-Yun smiled. "The human body is the perfect weapon against them. Every breath we take releases water vapor. Every tear, every drop of sweat is deadly to them. And they never saw it coming." The Galrock tried one last time to push forward. They attacked Seoul with their biggest force yet. But now the humans were ready. Soldiers stood their ground, letting their natural body moisture create a barrier the aliens couldn't cross. Sun-Ho, now promoted for his discovery, led his unit in the defense of Seoul. "Remember," he told his soldiers, "we don't need fancy weapons. We are the weapons." As the day ended, the Galrock pulled back again. Their perfect crystal ships didn't shine as brightly anymore. Moisture from Earth's atmosphere was already starting to fog their surfaces. In her lab, Hei-Yun prepared her final report. The numbers were clear. Humanity's strongest weapon against the Galrock was simply being human. Their bodies, which the aliens had thought weak and primitive, were actually perfect anti-Galrock weapons. "Send this to all commands," she told her team. "It's time for everyone to know. We're not just fighting the Galrock. We're made to defeat them." The war had changed. Now it was only a matter of time before the Galrock realized they had invaded a planet where every single one of their enemies was a walking water bomb. Jai-Won stood in front of a large screen showing her plan for Operation Rainmaker. Around her, military leaders from different countries watched through video calls. The plan was simple but clever. "The monsoon season starts next week," she explained, pointing to weather maps. "We've been waiting for this. The Galrock don't know about Earth's seasonal rains." Screens showed the positions of alien forces around the world. The Galrock had pulled back from coastal areas, but still held many major cities. Their crystal towers reached into the sky, glowing with strange lights. "Commander Yoonji will lead the ground forces," Jai-Won continued. "We've modified basic water guns into weapons. Every soldier carries water from their own body. Sweat, saliva, mixed with regular water. It's more effective than plain water. In the field, Yoonji was already preparing her troops. They carried special backpacks filled with water and sprayers made from simple garden tools. Some soldiers wore extra layers to make themselves sweat more. Remember, Yoonji told her soldiers, "We are the weapons. Every drop of moisture from our bodies is poison to them." The attack began at dawn. But this time, Earth's forces weren't using bullets or bombs. They had something better. Yoonji's teams moved through the streets of Seoul using hit-and-run tactics. They would run hard, work up a sweat, then get close to Galruk positions. The aliens couldn't stand being near the sweating humans. Their crystal bodies would start to fog up and crack just from the moisture in the air around the soldiers. "It's working," Yoonji reported back to Jaewon. "They can't handle our presence. Their formations are breaking." In other cities, similar attacks were happening. Humans had learned to use their bodies as weapons. Runners would jog past Galruk positions, their sweating bodies causing panic among the aliens. Swimming teams would shake their wet hair near alien barriers, watching the crystal structures dissolve. Then the monsoon came. The first heavy rains hit Bangkok. The Galruk weren't ready. Their crystal ships started to cloud over. Their soldiers scrambled for cover. The rain was everywhere, and every drop was deadly to them. "Look at this," Jaewon called to her command center, showing live footage. The Galruk were abandoning their positions, retreating in panic as the rain poured down. The same thing happened in Mumbai, then Manila, then Seoul. The monsoon rains swept across Asia, and the Galruk couldn't hide from it. Their mighty crystal towers began to dissolve in the downpour. Yoonji led her forces forward through the rain. The humans wore simple rain gear, but to the Galruk, they looked like unstoppable water demons marching through the storm. "Their entire base is melting," Yoonji reported, watching a crystal fortress collapse in the rain. They never expected the sky itself to attack them. In her lab, Haeyun monitored the effects. "The rain isn't just destroying their structures," she told Jaewon over the phone. "It's changing Earth's atmosphere. The increased humidity is making it hard for them to function anywhere on the planet." The Galruk tried to fight back. They attempted to use energy shields to block the rain, but they couldn't cover everything. And they couldn't stop the humans, whose bodies were natural weapons against them. One Galruk commander was caught on video screaming to his troops, "How do they live like this? The water is everywhere. It falls from their sky. It comes out of their bodies. This planet is trying to kill us." Jaewon smiled as she watched the alien forces crumble. Operation Rainmaker was working better than they'd hoped. The rain wasn't just driving the Galruk away. It was showing them that Earth itself was their enemy. "Send word to all commands," she ordered. "Push forward while they're confused. Show them what a planet of water can do." By evening, the reports were clear. The Galruk were losing everywhere. Their mighty invasion was being defeated by something as simple as rain and human sweat. In the command center, Jaewon watched the Galruk ships starting to pull away from Earth's surface. They were retreating, their perfect crystal surfaces now clouded and cracked from Earth's moisture. "Should we pursue them?" an officer asked. "No need," Jaewon replied. "They're learning the hard way. They picked the wrong planet to invade. Earth isn't just our home. It's our greatest weapon against them." The Galruk High Commander stood in his crystal ship above Seoul, watching his troops retreat from another failed attack. Something was very wrong with this invasion, but he couldn't understand what. "Bring me the latest analysis of these humans," he ordered. His scientists, their crystal bodies dulled from stress, brought up their findings on a large screen. At first, the High Commander didn't understand what he was seeing. He checked the numbers again, then again. His crystal face cracked with horror. "This can't be right," he whispered. "Run the tests again." But the results were the same. Humans were composed of 60% water. Their blood was 90% water. Their brains were 73% water. Every human on Earth was a walking container of the one substance that could destroy the Galruk. Why didn't we check this before? He screamed at his scientists. The sound was like breaking glass. Meanwhile, He-Yun was sharing the same information with military leaders around the world. The Galruk just figured it out, she said, showing them intercepted alien messages. They finally did a full analysis of human biology. The panic in the alien communications was clear. Messages between their ships were filled with fear. They're made of water. How do they hold their shape? Each human is a water bomb waiting to explode. This whole planet is a death trap. He-Yun worked with her team to broadcast these findings to every Galruk ship in orbit. They translated the human biological data into the aliens' crystal language and sent it everywhere. The effect was immediate. Galruk soldiers started abandoning their posts without orders. Their perfect formations broke down as troops refused to go near humans. In Busan, Jai-Won watched through binoculars as a group of Galruk warriors backed away from a children's playground. A little girl had sneezed, and the moisture in the air had sent the mighty alien warriors running in terror. "They're starting to understand," Jai-Won said into her radio. "Humans aren't just fighting them. We're naturally made to destroy them." The Galruk High Commander called an emergency meeting with his leaders. As they discussed the situation, a drop of condensation fell from a poorly sealed ceiling panel. The drop landed on a commander's shoulder, and everyone watched in horror as his crystal body began to dissolve. "We can't stay on this planet," one leader shouted. "Even their children are weapons against us. They sweat, they cry, they spit. Everything they do releases water." He-Yun's team intercepted and translated the entire meeting. She couldn't help but smile as she heard the mighty Galruk leaders panicking about human bodily functions. "Send this to all Earth forces," she told her team. "Let everyone know. We've won. Not with advanced technology or powerful weapons, but simply by being human." The Galruk High Commander made one last attempt to salvage the invasion. He ordered his troops to wear special moisture-proof suits. But the suits couldn't protect against everything. Human breath would fog their visors. Sweat would find tiny cracks. Rain would seep through seams. "Listen to this," He-Yun told Jai-Won, playing a translated alien message. "Their soldiers are saying humans are like living water fountains. They can't understand how we survive being filled with their deadliest substance." More reports came in from around the world. Galruk soldiers were refusing to fight. Some crystal ships were taking off without orders. The mighty invasion force was falling apart. The High Commander watched his army crumble. His perfect invasion plan, his superior technology, his unbeatable warriors, all defeated by the simple fact that humans were mostly water. "How did we not know?" he asked his empty command room. "How did we choose to invade a planet where the dominant species is made of poison?" He-Yun sent one final message to the alien fleet. It was simple. "Every human you see is 60% water. Every breath we take releases water vapor. Every drop of our sweat, every tear, every bit of moisture from our bodies can destroy you. Still want to fight us?" The message played on every Galruk ship in orbit. The High Commander watched his mighty army, the pride of the Crystal Worlds, break down in panic. The revelation was complete. The Galruk had come to conquer Earth, only to discover that every single human was naturally designed to destroy them. The Galruk retreat was not organized. It was not graceful. It was pure panic. Crystal ships lifted off from Earth's surface so quickly that some cracked under the strain. The mighty alien fleet, which had arrived in perfect formation, now scattered like broken glass in the wind. "They're running everywhere," Sun Ho shouted from his observation post. He watched through binoculars as 3 Galruk ships crashed into each other in their rush to leave Earth's atmosphere. In the command center, Jai-Won and her team tracked the alien ships on their screens. "They're not even trying to fight anymore," she said. "They just want to get away from us." The Galruk were leaving behind everything. Their weapons, their technology, their half-built bases, all abandoned in their desperate escape from the water-filled humans. Some ships didn't even wait for their ground troops to return. "Look at this," Taiho said, showing Jai-1 a video from New York. A group of Galrock soldiers was trying to climb up a crystal rope to their ship. Then it started to rain. The rope dissolved, sending the aliens crashing to the ground. Their screams sounded like wind chimes breaking. Hyun's lab was busy studying the abandoned alien technology. "They left so fast, they didn't even try to destroy their equipment," she told Jai-1 over the phone. "We have their most advanced tech just sitting here." In orbit, the Galrock High Commander watched his fleet fall apart. "Maintain order," he tried to command, but his own voice shook with fear. A drop of condensation had formed inside his crystal helmet, and he couldn't stop staring at it. More ships were arriving, but not to fight. These were rescue ships from the Galrock homeworld, coming to save their troops from the water-filled humans. They had never lost a war before. They had never retreated before, but they had never faced an enemy that was naturally made to destroy them. Another ship down, Sunho reported. A crystal ship had tried to take off during a rain shower. The water had damaged its engines, and it crashed into the sea. The entire ship dissolved in minutes. Jai-1 ordered rescue teams to check the crash sites, but they found no survivors. The Galrock couldn't survive any contact with Earth's oceans. Their mighty ships were dissolving into the seas they had tried to conquer. In Seoul, Yoon-jae led her troops through the abandoned alien bases. The crystal buildings were already starting to fog up from the morning dew. "It's like they were never meant to be here," she said into her radio. "Everything they built is falling apart just from the moisture in the air." Hyun made another discovery in her lab. The Galrock didn't just leave their technology, she told Jai-1. They left their battle plans, their star maps, everything. "We can learn so much from this." The retreat lasted less than a day. The same alien fleet that had taken a week to arrive in perfect formation was now running away in hours. Their ships disappeared into space, leaving behind only the dissolving remains of their invasion. "Should we shoot them down?" a military officer asked Jai-1. "No need," she replied. "They've learned their lesson. Earth is not a planet they can conquer, not when its people are made of their greatest weakness." In his ship, the High Commander wrote his final report about Earth. His words shook as he wrote, "Warning to all crystal-based life forms. Do not attempt invasion of Earth. Its dominant species are water creatures. They sweat, they cry, they carry water inside them. Even their air is full of water. This planet is death to us." Back on Earth, humans began cleaning up after the invasion. The crystal buildings and machines left behind were already breaking down in the natural moisture of Earth's atmosphere. In a few weeks, there would be almost no sign that Galrock had ever been there. "What do we do now?" Sunho asked Jai-1 as they watched the last alien ships disappear from their screens. "Now," Jai-1 smiled. "Now we study what they left behind. We learn from their technology. And we remember, sometimes the strongest weapon isn't the biggest gun. Sometimes it's just being who we are." The stars grew quiet as the last Galrock ship vanished. Earth had won its first alien war, not with advanced weapons or brilliant strategies, but simply because humans were mostly water. It was a victory that would be remembered across the galaxy. 1 month after the Galrock retreat, Earth was changing. The remains of crystal buildings had melted away in the rain, but humanity's understanding of the universe had changed forever. Hyun stood in her new laboratory, much bigger than her old underground one. Around her, scientists from around the world studied the technology the Galrock had left behind. The aliens' panic had given Earth a gift: access to advanced alien science. "Look at this," she told Jai-1, who visited the lab daily. She held up what looked like a small crystal. "Their data storage systems are amazing. One crystal this size can hold more information than all our computers combined." Jai-1 nodded, looking at the screen showing the alien technology they were studying. "Can we use it? Won't it dissolve like everything else they made?" We're learning to copy their technology using different materials, Heyun explained. Materials that don't react to water. The Galrock were brilliant, but they had one big weakness. We don't have to make the same mistake. Across the city, Sun Ho was training a new type of military unit. They called themselves the Water Warriors, though he thought the name was a bit silly. Their job was to protect Earth from any future alien attacks. Remember, he told his troops, we learned something important from the Galrock. Sometimes our greatest strength is simply being human. The United Nations had created a new department called the Planetary Defense Force. G1 was chosen to lead it. Their first project was building a warning system for other alien invaders, using modified Galrock technology. We're putting satellites in orbit, Ji-1 explained to world leaders. If any crystal-based life forms come near Earth, we can warn them about our water content before they make the same mistake as the Galrock. Earth scientists had learned much from studying the alien technology. They discovered that the galaxy was full of different life forms. Some, like the Galrock, were based on crystals. Others were based on metals, gases, or things humans couldn't even understand yet. But we have an advantage, Heyun told a group of students visiting her lab. Water is rare in the galaxy. Most aliens have never dealt with it. Being mostly water makes humans very special. The Galrock's defeat had made other alien races curious about Earth. Some sent peaceful messages, wanting to learn more about these strange water beings who had defeated the mighty Crystal Empire. One day, Ji-1 received an interesting message from space. Another alien race wanted to visit Earth, not to invade, but to trade. They were a species made of living metal, and they had no fear of water. Should we trust them? Sun Ho asked during a meeting. We'll be careful, Ji-1 replied. But we shouldn't let fear stop us from making friends in the galaxy. Besides, now everyone knows. If they try to hurt us, we have a natural defense. Heyun's team made another exciting discovery. The Galrock's star maps showed thousands of inhabited worlds. But Earth was special. It was one of the few planets where water was so common. We're like a water planet to them, she explained. No crystal-based life form will ever try to invade us again. They've spread the word. Earth is too dangerous. The world changed in other ways too. Countries worked together more, sharing the new technology they were developing. The knowledge that humans weren't alone in the universe had brought Earth's people closer together. 1 year after the invasion, Ji-1 stood on the roof of the Planetary Defense Headquarters, looking at the stars. The night sky didn't seem empty anymore. It was full of possible friends and enemies, all wondering about the strange water beings of Earth. What do you think will happen next? Sun Ho asked, standing beside her. I think, Ji-1 said with a smile, that we're going to surprise a lot more aliens. Not with our weapons or our technology, but just by being ourselves. Heyun joined them, holding a new crystal data storage device her team had created. The Galrock thought they were superior to us, she said, but they taught us something important. Sometimes what others see as a weakness is actually our greatest strength. As they watched the stars, a shooting star crossed the sky. But now they knew, it might not be a star at all. It might be another visitor, coming to learn about the mysterious water people who had defeated the mighty Galrock Empire. Earth was ready for whatever came next. After all, they had the perfect defense. They were human, and that was enough.